Okay, so I'm just going to talk about a process that I use for starting WordPress websites with Elementor and all the plugins that I need with all my default settings. So what we do at WP-Get is we have a, for want of a better word, a template site. I think the word template is getting a little bit confused between templates as in theme templates, as in Elementor templates, theme builder templates. Gets very confusing when the same word is overused. So what I'm talking about here is I've got a full WordPress installation on this domain here. And what we do is we keep this up to date with everything we commonly use. When I do a new website, we use this as a reference starting point. So if it is an existing domain being used, we'll clone this to a development site. If it is a new website, a new domain, we'll clone it to the URL it's going to be on, and then we put that URL into maintenance mode while we work on it. What I'm going to quickly show you is what we have here. So if I go back to my dashboard and have a look at my plugins. So we pretty much install all the plugins that we commonly use and just deactivate all the ones that we don't require for this template site. I think that's a good way of doing it. Now, we can still keep all these up to date because every time there's updates for any of these that are inactive, it'll show, and we run all our updates and keep this updated before we clone it to a new site that we're going to build. There's some common code snippets, there's Elementor, some Jet elements, Jet Engine from Crockablock, a few common things that we use. That's the plugins. Pages, we have a set of build templates, which I'll show you, where we have sections where we've removed all of the styling that is created through the section blocks that you import, which I'll show you. And we put those all onto pages under a delete when done heading. Then we have a typical simple contact us page. We've got a page which shows our common styles, which is the custom styles that we've created that we often use. Some examples on some extra entry effects that we've created. We have a typical homepage, which will just be pretty much wiped and recreated for the client. Importantly, we have a privacy policy, which is a standard privacy policy, and a style guide. I'm going to very quickly show you those. If I look at the privacy policy, there it is there. And if I look in the actual policy here, see I've got a shortcode for date modified, which I've created, which is part of my code snippets. We've got some Jet Engine options here, which is what we'll pull from our options page. So it automatically fills all of this in and gives us a standard policy based on what we put into these business details up here. So that's just a typical Jet Engine options page. So if we go into option pages here, for example, so I've created one called business details, put all the properties in there that I'm going to use throughout the site. Then we just have to update these, and they will be updated everywhere we've used them. The next page I'm going to look at is our style guide. I'm just going to view that from here. So I have a standard style guide, so it'll pull this from that business details options page. The rest of this is pretty standard, and we're going to show you through what do we do with all this. So before we start designing any site, we create this style guide page, and everything is based on that. If I go in and edit this page with Elementor, okay, so if I edit this page with Elementor, you see we've got some predefined colors here. So I use a 9-color palette, which is the primary, secondary, and accent, and then 2 variations of each of those. So I'm going to show you how I create those. So I've got a tool that I've created over here on our WP-Get site. I'll put a link to that just in case you want to use it. And in here, what we do is we create our first color. So whatever that is, or I'm using Chrome, so we get the Chrome selector here. I can put a hex number in there if I want. Let's say this red is our first color. It automatically creates 2 variations based on saturate by and brightness by. So if you're not happy with those, what I typically do is grab the, copy that. Actually, you can't copy this to the Chrome picker. It just doesn't allow you to paste. So what we'll do is we'll bring up this here, go to hex. I'm just going to type that in, which is a D32727. Then I'll change to my HSL. We do not want to vary the hue because then it'll be a different color. Let's say we want that to be a little bit more saturated. So maybe we'll make that, say, 80%. We can see this little swatch here gives us the variation. And let's say the lightness on that, we want to bring the lightness up. So let's make that, say, 55%. That's a bit of a different variation. Click away from there, and that's changed the variation. Not much different to that, but that's the kind of thinking that you look at. Then you can actually drag these as well. So you might just drag that to change. And again, we're watching this little swatch down here. Click away, and then we get our three colors. So what I would then do is on my style guide here. So this is on the cloned copy of this to our new domain. I'll go into my site settings, global colors, and I'll go to my first color. So this would be my primary. So I'm going to copy that, go back into here, and I would paste that into my primary, which I'm not going to do because it'll mess up my site. I then grab the variation here, copy that. I go to my primary variation 1, and I paste that in there. So very, very simple way of creating your primary, secondary, and accent, and then adding two variations of each that you can use. I typically only use the variations and the base colors, no other colors when I'm developing the site. Now, the other thing I've done in here is, you'll see here for each of these colors, I've got a example on white and then an example on a dark grey. And for some reason, my Elementor editor is just going a little bit slow today. This morning it was a lot better, so I'm finding that happens from time to time. But anyway, so there's what I end up with. So this is the primary colour, primary version 1, primary version 2 on light and on dark grey. So that's my colours. Okay, I then also upload my logos. I generally give them, they come with a few different options. So we've got a standard logo, alt logo for when you're on dark colors, a mono logo, alt mono for when you're on dark colors, and a standard icon and a mono standard icon. There are a few other variations in the logo pack. I generally do a zip file of all the versions of a logo, which will have the original AI, PNGs, PDFs, and SVGs of all of these logos. I then will define the headings and body topography here. Now, to do that, I'm going to open up a different page on my template site. So here's my template site here. So I normally have a reference page here with a sample content. And I've basically got heading 1, 2, 3, 4 and some body copy, and then a block here of what it might look like with a heading 2, subheading, which is an H4, and some body copy. So if I want to change the style of my site, I will edit while I'm on this page, and then go to my globals. And first of all, I would set the fonts as my primary would be the font that's used in the menus and some small headings. Secondary will be the font that I generally use in all of the headings, heading 1, 2, 3. Sometimes I might use the primary for the heading 4, depending on how that fits. Secondary, I'll make the same as the primary, but just maybe change the sizing and the weight. And my accent, again, I use the accent, which is generally the same as my secondary. And I might use that, for example, here for the heading 4, where I just told it it's all uppercase and set my font size for that. And then I have a big text font, which again, it's generally the same as the heading font, but I make it nice and big so I can use that in heroes and sections where I want a big font. Each of these You look at the tablet size and make sure that looks good on tablet. Look at the mobile size, make sure it fits nicely on a mobile, vary those depending on what you want. And then from here, you go into your topography and you change your settings on each of these. So at the moment, I've got my heading 3 as being my secondary color. I can make that my accent color if I like. Make it back, I'll just put it back to secondary. Make it whatever you like. Set your font sizes and colors. So for example here, I'm not seeing a big difference between my heading 1s and 2s. So I might go back to here and I might go, okay, I want that, always do REMs by the way. So I might make that a bit bigger. Let's see what that's like on a mobile, tablet. That looks fine. Go to mobile size. It might look a little bit too big, so we go to REMs. We go, okay, how big do we want that to be? Maybe just a little bit bigger than the H2 on a mobile. So then you go through each of your headings, and that's your headings done. And you can see what the H2s, the H4s I use for my subheadings. H3s I use a little bit more sparingly, and then my body copy. So that's pretty much my style done for that. I then come back to my style guide. Just going to refresh that. And go back to my style guide and then have a look at these. And bring up my Chrome Dev Tools with F12. Have a look at my heading 1. Look at my computed styles. And what we'll see here, I haven't updated these by the way because it's just a template. So then I look at my font size and it's 3.2 REM. Font style is normal, the font weight is 400 and the family is Ruder, which is a Google font. So once I've found that, I'll go back over to here and I'm going to change that to Ruder. Make that 3.2 REM and the font weight is 400. And there's my heading 1 definition done. So I do that for each of these. These aren't correct at the moment because this was based on a different font when I was playing with it. And now if I look at my style guide, oops. An actual page. Now I've got my heading 1 bigger. It's defined as Ruder at 3.2 with a weight of 400. So that's my style guide built. So really, really simple. Define your colors using whatever tool you want. I built this for myself because I couldn't find anything that did this. Go to your style guide, update your colors in the global settings, then copy and paste all of these values here into these descriptions here so that they match what your actual globals are. And that's your style guide done. So now we can go about building the site. I'm just going to show you quickly one more with the colors. Okay, so if we look at our site settings for the colors, and we look at our global colors, this is my typical site. So I'll have a primary, secondary, typical text and accent. Now these are all predefined when you first install Elementor. And then I create a black, various grays, a white, a black with transparency. That's really good if you want background to show through. So for example, if I have a section over here and I want that to be a little bit grey, but there's something behind it I want to show through, I use the black with transparency. Then I've got your primary V1, primary V2, secondary V1, secondary V2, accent V1, accent V2. Now this is every single Elementor site that I do. So let's see how that translates into actual variables. So I'll just look at one of these and have a look in. Ooh, why is that? There we go. So if we look at the CSS generated from that, we end up with a global color primary, secondary, text, and accent. They're the defaults. Anything else that you create, it gives a random characters at the end of it. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 random characters? So my black is CB261FD. So if you create your own black here, it's going to have a different number. So when we transfer this template from one side to another by exporting and importing the template, these are all different. So you have to recreate all of those and then go in and assign those values to each of these icons here. So, and update these. Now, I don't need to do that because I create this whole site as a WordPress installation template. I clone the entire site, which means that all of these stay the same. So that's a real quick way to keep doing this and keep it consistent without having to do too much work. All right, so that's the fonts, the colors, the style guide. Now that is my starting point when I do this. And for some reason today, Elementor is just woefully slow. This varies all the time. Most days it's fine. I know it's not my hosting. I know it's not my internet because I've tried switching internet. I think Elementor tries to get, the editor at least, tries to get some stuff from CDNs. And where I am, sometimes that just is extremely variable. So I wish Elementor would not get files from CDNs for the editor. I wish they actually embedded all of the files and did not rely on these unreliable CDNs. Back over to the template site. So what I start with is just a home page, which is just nothing. It's just rubbish, which we'd delete pretty much all of this and start again. Same with the contact us page. It's just rubbish. We'd start again. Blog again, it's just a rubbish page. We'd pretty much start again to define all that. Reference pages is that style guide, the sample content that I just showed you. And I only use this for defining my globals. So I open this up as a page, edit my fonts, colors, buttons. Generally don't do anything with images. You want to define image styles on a per image basis. Form elements, define all those while you've got this open, and it just keeps it all in the one place. I then have, I'm just going to jump over the entry effects, common styles. Now, I've got a plugin that I keep which does these, and I document all of my common styles, so I know that if I put a bold tag on this and add 2 primary bold to the widget, the bold is going to now become my primary color. On this one, it'll become my secondary. On that one, it'll become my accent. Using the mark tag, which normally gives you a yellowish background looking like a marker. So if I wrap this in a span, in fact, I'll just show you what that looks like. If I wrap that there in a span, not a span, sorry. If I wrap that there in a mark, and then on the widget, I give it 2 primary mark, it'll convert that to my primary color, secondary, and accent. Underlines, I've got some definitions here, what you need to do. This is actually really, really cool. So basically all I do is wrap this part of the heading in the span. I use this class WPG underline, set my style of the height and my color. I'm using my globals here. This could be a hex value, RGB value, whatever you like. So I've done a primary, secondary, and accent, and on each of these I just set the height differently just to show it as a reference. Same with blocks. So use WPG block. I set the padding on it, so you're padding around it, and the color again. And that's pretty much what I do if I want to highlight any of these. If I add, change any bullets to arrows, I can just add this bullet arrow to the section or to the text editor, and any bullets it will replace with these arrows. Aligning my widget list. This is an ongoing issue which I've seen requested a fix for many, many times. Your Elementor icon list widget. if the text wraps, it sticks the icon in the middle, which gets really confusing. So by adding this class to the widget, it aligns the icons to the top. Now this one here is for aligning your last widget in a column to the bottom. Now you can set the column vertical alignment to space between, which will put the first widget at the top, the last one at the bottom, but that also equally spaces all of the stuff in the middle. So we might have a situation where we have multiple things here, and we want those to all sit at the top, but we want the last one at the bottom. So by adding this class here to the section or to the column, it'll stick whatever the last widget is at the bottom of that column. We then have some things here, which is, this is something I've just recently done. So I did a separate video on this. So by default, when you have a column and you add widgets in it, it sticks the 20 pixel margin at the bottom of each widget, plus with the paragraphs, if you've got paragraphs there, the paragraph adds a margin at the bottom of each paragraph. So what we've got here is if we add WPG widget spacing none to the column, it removes all of the widget spacing. In this case, it's got a bit of spacing because that's the paragraph that we're seeing. Paragraph spacing small adds a 0.5 REM spacing, and medium gives us a 1 REM spacing. So instead of having to try and override all your globals and put negative margin and all that sort of rubbish on widgets, if you want, for example, an address block in a column and you want the address, phone, email or whatever, and you don't want this 20 pixel margin between each of them, you can just add these classes and that will get rid of those margins for you or reduce those margins. So that's pretty much the global styles that I've got at this stage. And then the entry effects is I've created a whole bunch of my own custom entry effects, and this basically just shows those entry effects and what they do. I won't go into each of these, but so whatever you create as standard classes, entry effects, whatever, create a page, document them, stick them on there so you can see, okay, so that's what this one does. That's what that one does. And then when you want to use it, it's a good reference point to how that works. So those are my reference pages. Now my build templates. This is actually something I've just started doing. I've got to work on a lot more of this. So let's say, for example, these client templates. I'm going to show you something here as why I do this. Eventually. Okay. So each of these, what I've done, I'm just going to add another section up here just to show you what I'm doing. Add a section, and I'm going to stick one of these templates in there. Oops, what am I doing? Right on the bottom here, I'm going to add a template, and maybe it's just a block, and maybe it is an about block. So let's pick a different one. Here we go. So we insert this one because we like the look of it. Okay. Now, if you look at this here, all the colors are different, the fonts are different because these do not use your globals. So the best way to do this is that you go to your column, grab your background, and change that to one of your globals. So if you want the extra light there, what's this here? That's a title, which is an H6. Let's make it an H4 to be in line with the rest of our stuff, and then reset the styles. So that's our H4 that we defined. What's this here? That's an H3. Let's make that a H2, reset the styles. We're not that nice and big. We'll go to our styles, and we'll pick our big font that we created in the style guide. Again here, we're going to reset the style on that. That's a button. So actually it's going to be a standard button. You can recolor all that if you want to. Anything else in here that you think might be not your standard styles, reset it all so that when you use this on another site, instead of being completely different colors and different fonts and different spacings and all that sort of stuff, make it so that it uses the globals that you've defined through the site settings. So you do that with all these as well. So I'd say, for example, reset that. I'm not going to do every single one. Reset that. Set that to what? It's an H4. Okay, maybe we don't like it as an H4. Make it an H3. And make sure these are all the same. Reset the styles on that. So that's using our standard body font. And there you go. So make this so that it fits in with your design and you don't end up with all this weird styles from different templates that you've inserted. Okay, so if I've cloned this site, right, I've cloned my site and I like this, our client section. All I have to do is right click on that, copy, go to another page. So I'll just do it on here, for example, right click on there, paste. There we go, I've got now client section with all the global styles that we've applied through our site settings, not the random styles that the template has got. So for me, it makes more sense with these to go through each of these blocks that you like, create a page for those, insert the template blocks into those, go to each of these, reset all of your styles, then set it up to use your global styles. So then all you have to do is copy and paste that whole section into another area. Testimonial templates, for example. I like the look of this. Right click on the section, copy, go to my testimonials on my home page or my About Us page, whatever, paste it in, and it's got all of your global styles. So that's the reason I do this. Now, this is the whole process I use to speed up web development. It works for me, and you could save hours by not having to reset things every single time, find templates you like, etc. Hopefully that gives you some ideas of what you might implement. Some of you might already do this sort of thing, but I've found that this really, really speeds up development, and I'm going to keep adding to this so that it makes it even easier. And yeah, so I hope you've got some value out of that, and good luck.